Hey, everybody, welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast. This is Mark Cardone.
And Theron Feidt.
I am so excited for our topic today. I've been talking to people. As we record this, we're like the second week into the new year. And I've been asking a lot of people this question of, where are you? Like, are you on week 2 of the new year making a ton of progress? Or are you in the same place you were last year? Or are you behind? And surprisingly, a lot of people who were going to start January 1st didn't start January 1st. And they're thinking, well, maybe this week, right? And today we're addressing a big chunk of why that happens.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about how to work through it. So this is an awesome topic.
Well, specifically January 3rd is where most people started because that was the Monday, right?
Right.
So you can't do first because that's a Saturday, and Sunday is the day off, so you can't do the second.
Right.
So a lot of people are already 2 days behind.
Right.
Yeah. So it's amazing how we all all of us make excuses and justifications for things.
Yeah.
So
and what we're talking about today, because I mean the motivation obviously is there, to do it, but what doesn't go away, and something that people, the more I talk to people, the more I realize that they're aware of it, is fears, right? Like our fears don't go anywhere. So if you were afraid of, cold calling because you didn't want to get rejected on January 3rd, you were still afraid of cold calling. You know what I mean? If you were afraid of running, you're still going to be afraid of running. Like fear doesn't go anywhere unless we do something actively to work on it, right? And I think that's part of the process, and that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and the infamous courage quote is that you don't do something because you're not afraid. You do it in spite of the fear that you have. So you take action, and that's really what you were talking about, is taking the right action and making sure that you're getting things done, because fear is a huge motivator to either get things done or to stop you from getting done. Like if you're afraid of losing something, someone, whatever, oftentimes you do a lot of stuff, a lot of action to make sure that doesn't happen, right? And the famous thing, and I don't know where this is from originally, but Anthony Robbins 20, 30 years ago, his story of the $100. How hard would you work to earn $100 versus how hard would you work for somebody taking $100 from you? So the fear of failure or losing out is much more powerful than the fear of getting something. So
and I think it's interesting because as we plan these podcasts, and people know, like we really put a lot of kind of thought into what we're talking about, and we said, well, geez, we talked about fear a couple of times here,
we have,
but then we're sitting here going, well, are people not procrastinating anymore because of fear? No, we're like people. I'm still doing it. Like I'm still procrastinating because I'm afraid to do things. You know what I mean? My friends are still procrastinating because they're afraid to do things. So I think this is a great podcast to do right now. So if you're one of those people who set a goal and you're not making that progress that you want to make, right? Here we go. Like these steps, these 3 things we're going to go over are going to help you not be afraid, because we're always going to be afraid of things, right? That's our natural state. But it's going to help you overcome that.
Right. It's that mindset, because there's a lot going on in the world. I mean, a lot of people are afraid to fail. I mean, the fear of failure, we did a podcast specifically on that recently. But also the big fear that has been around for a long time is public speaking. People are afraid to do public speaking. So that's a real thing. The pandemic, there's a lot of fear going on as we're currently almost 2 years into the pandemic, a lot of fear going on there. So we're going to talk about how you can use this system and this framework that we're going to discuss, these 3 steps, to really overcoming fear. I don't know if that's, like we said, exactly what's happening, because I mean, yes, you're overcoming it, but you're still going to have that come in. It's like negative thoughts. We don't really get rid of negative thoughts. We replace them with positive thoughts and action. And that's the same thing. Action is the antidote to fear.
And absolutely. And fear. So fear can have a real impact too, because as we're talking about this, I was thinking about a story that one of my friends told me last week, which I think is funny. He had a pipe burst in his basement and his basement flooded, and a fear caused it. Do you want to guess what the fear is?
Not going in the basement. I don't know, but
fear of spiders.
Oh, so he wouldn't go in the basement.
He wouldn't. So he didn't want to put his hand in the area where you have to twist the thing. To turn,
right.
And if you're not in a cold climate and you're listening to this, not understand what
this
we're talking
means
about.
Nothing to you.
Yeah, this means nothing. We have to turn our water off up here so it doesn't freeze. But it's amazing how fear, and even like irrational fears, because we don't have deadly spiders in New York State that I know of. I mean, so yeah, let's get into our steps because I think this is going to have a huge impact. Number one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. So number one is looking at what you're afraid of and realizing, are you in control of it or not?
Right.
And I mean, I think this is a huge step.
Yeah, it is, because that in itself, it should either carry you. So if, in other words, if you are not in control of something, you can still be afraid. However, you're not in control over it. So what do you have to change? You have to change how you think about it, or not do it at all, or whatever the case is, right? Yeah. But if you are in control, why are you afraid?
Mm-hmm.
You're the one in control. You're the one that can determine how things go because you have control over it. And we know that we can't control other people, but what can we control, or what should we be able to control? Ourselves. We should be able to control ourselves and our emotions. So it's really about making sure that you're taking hold of what you can control, what you can influence, what you can work towards. That's going to start you off on the right foot.
Yeah. And I think it all starts with mindset. I mean, I think mindset's a huge part of this. And as you're looking at those things that you're not doing, because of some innate fear, what, understanding really what are you afraid of, because I think that's, I said cold calling earlier. I hear people say all the time, I'm afraid of cold calling. I don't think people are afraid of cold calling. Dialing the phone never hurt anybody.
Right.
They're afraid of rejection, right?
Yes.
And they're afraid of, and unfortunately, like that's really not something that you can totally control because it's another person.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we'll talk about, part of that, but understanding exactly what the thing is, because I think we tend to say, I'm afraid of, going to the gym. No, you're afraid of what people will think about you when you're at the gym.
Right.
And once you break your fear down into that little kind of bite-sized thing, as opposed to this, I can't control being afraid of picking up the phone, but I can control fear of rejection. So understanding really what is that core thing you're afraid of, and how do you, do you control it? Can you control it? That's step one.
Yeah. And step two is, are you prepared? And furthermore, what can you do to prepare?
Yeah.
So if I have a fear of doing something and I'm not prepared, that's probably smart that I'm afraid, because the chance of failure is a lot greater when I don't prepare myself.
Yeah.
Anytime that I, in my life, I've been afraid of something, oftentimes it is that I just feel, that I just didn't prepare enough. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's going up for another degree, or doing public speaking, whatever the case is, the antidote to that is me preparing, make sure that I do everything I possibly can to be ready for that day that I have to perform. That makes a huge difference in your confidence, and therefore confidence helps overcome the fear.
Yeah. And so I learned when I got into real estate. So if the people listening, you're going to get a real estate tip and a life tip out of this.
Ooh,
this is great,
nice.
Right? Investment tip, I guess. But, one of the people that mentored me into real estate told me that the people who fail in real estate are people who are averse to risk, completely averse to risk. Okay. And what he said is, because we're all risk averse, but he said, you can never eliminate risk.
Right.
Everything you do will have risk involved, and the people who fail tend to try to eliminate it. All you can do is mitigate it, right? So what we can do is we can take risk, and we can exactly what you said, prepare, which we just did a whole podcast on, being prepared, right?
Right. Yep.
Our last episode. But what we do is we prepare to mitigate that risk, so that if failure happens, which it does, right? Like, I'm telling people right now, even when you do the things you're afraid of, you may still not achieve the goal that you wanted.
Yep.
But at least it's not a total, death sentence plummeting failure. Right. So being prepared is really the tool to mitigate those risks. If you're afraid of public speaking, making an outline. People make fun of PowerPoint, but sometimes that's what it takes to make yourself comfortable, because now, you have an outline. Scripting when you're making phone calls. People are afraid they don't like scripting, but it's a huge help. So the more prepared, the better.
Yeah. And I love what you said there. That there's always a risk. There's a risk of failure, risk of things not going your way. And it's foolish. It's childish to think that there's going to be zero risk with something, no matter what we're talking about. That we're talking about a phone call, right? You will get rejection.
Yeah.
Cold call, warm call, somebody that has been with you for years, they're going to quit. They're going to stop doing business with you. Hopefully you don't have a lot of those, but there will be some that surprise you. I've had through the years students that quit totally surprised, and come to find out it was things going on in their life that I wasn't aware of the reason. So I guess I felt better in that sense that it wasn't me, but in the same regards, I still lost a great student. There's not a zero risk going out and driving your car during the day. There's not a zero risk with COVID. Right? There's always going to be a risk. But what you said is by mitigating the risk and minimizing it and preparing yourself the best you can, because again, trying to get it to zero is a fool's errand.
Absolutely. And I think that cascades really well into the third step. So, I mean, going into the third step, which is realizing that whatever the outcome is, it may not be the worst situation in the world.
Yeah.
Right? Like, even if the outcome, you set a goal here, at a very high level and you land short, there's a lot that happens in between there. And we see this, I'll let you talk about it, but we see this with people going for black belt all the time.
Yep. Yeah. And I've had thousands of people go for black belt. Well, more go for it, but as far as achieve it, in the thousands through the years. And when they don't achieve their belt on the goal date that they set, which happens quite often, as long as they understand that, okay, I need more time, I'm going to get better, there's a reason for it, as long as they have that attitude, which I work very hard to instill that attitude in them as they're coming up through, they're going to be successful, whether it takes them 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. I've had some go 9 and 10 times through cycles. And these cycles are 4 to 6 months at a time. So, I mean, you're talking a long time. And this is the end. This is not from the start of white belt. This is the end. But the difference is all of them that achieved their black belt after going through a failure of missing a cycle or 2 or 3 or whatever, every single one of them, and I don't like to use absolutes, but I can with this one, they all said, thank you for not having me go through that time. I am so much more ready, aware. I wasn't ready at the time. I just feel so much better with it. So what they perceived and how disappointed they were at the time, they felt so much better because the outcome was better when they had to have more time to do it.
Yeah. And I think like you said, absolutes are tough, but I think 100% of the time, most people I meet who swing at the ball, whether it's black belt, whether it's cold calling, whether it's fitness, they end up, either succeeding, which some people, I mean, honestly, I think most people don't succeed on the first try. I don't think it's realistic.
Right. No.
But what happens is they make a little bit of progress, they learn a lesson, or like best case scenario, they just strengthen the identity that there's someone who's capable of doing things they're afraid of. I mean, I think, one of my first sales jobs, we had to make an hour of cold calls a day, not because they thought we were going to sell anything, but because they knew that by picking up the phone and having somebody kind of drive us to do it all day, the fear would go away, because you'd say, wow, I'm not afraid of doing this, and I'm not afraid of a lot of things now, because of that.
Right.
But strengthening your identity as a person who can do things that scare you
Right.
If you do things for no other reason, I think that's a huge reason to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes you better. And that old saying, it's the journey, not the destination. And that's not just talking about a physical journey along the way, but it really is the idea of the goal. So it's what you become as you're working to achieve that goal. Just like we talked about black belt.
Yeah.
The person that you become because of the training to get your black belt, that's really where the magic happens. And if you have to go through multiple times to get it, you should be growing each time and improving. You don't always do it. Time doesn't make you better. Time itself doesn't make you better. You got to put the work into it. You have to make the changes. You have to do the things that are going to get you there. But that the person that you become from the goal, whether it's black belt or developing a real estate company and building it from scratch like you did, whatever that is, it's the person that you become, the skills that you have to obtain in order to get there, but also to keep it there and keep it running successfully. I mean, that's really where the magic happens. So that's why the outcome that you have in your head and the disappointment that you have because they don't meet and match up, learn that it's okay. Right? Learn that oftentimes that it works out better for you.
Yeah.
That you failed, but you really didn't, because you can't see your future. You know, nobody can see your future right down the road. You can help predict it. You can point it in the direction, but you never know what's going to really happen.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. What a great cap off on our steps, though. You know, I mean, like learning that is so important in achieving your goals. You know, learning that the thing you're going for may not be the thing you want anyway. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like the people you meet, the person you become, the other little like kind of lessons you get along the way. That's the magic of achieving. Like that's and you know, becoming a person who all of a sudden, like you start doing things and you go, it's okay if I don't make it. At least I tried.
Yeah. And to wrap it up, I like the term goals have buddies. And I think that might've been from Brian Tracy a long time ago. I heard it, 30 something years ago. And that really stuck with me. And I think any large goal like black belt, I know we're always referring to black belt, but like building a business, anything that takes multiple years to achieve, goals have buddies concept is there's because of that one big goal, there's all these other goals that you achieve along the way that you didn't even know that were going to happen. Right.
Yep.
If you develop a successful business, think of all the skills that you adopted and got better with because of doing that one goal. That's what the goals have buddies concept is.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's go back through our steps. So this is us. Stop living in fear, start doing the things so you can make your progress. But step one, it all starts with mindset. Are you in control or not? What is the fear? Get to that root thing that you're afraid of and figure out what it is.
Number two, are you prepared or not? Have you done the steps to prepare so your confidence is higher and the percentage of success is greater because of the preparation that you did?
Yep. And then number three, realize that the outcome you get, even if it's not the one you set out for, may be better. It may be more valuable, and it may lead you to something that you didn't even know you were after that you're happier with. And that wraps up this episode of the Achieve Results Now podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you.